Hello everyone! Welcome back to my channel. I am Ma'am Nara, your teacher counselor. We're talking about how to make PISA-Like questions. Yes, the same kind of questions used in that big international assessment we keep hearing about. If you've ever wondered why our students sometimes struggle with PIS-style items, or if you simply want to level up your own test-making skills, this episode is exactly what you need. We'll break down what makes a question truly PISA-like, walk through the 3 key domains, and even build a sample question together. Let's get started. We start with the basics. PISA stands for Program for International Student Assessment, and it's conducted by the OECD, or the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, every 3 years. It assesses 15-year-old students worldwide in 3 key areas: reading, mathematics, and science. This global scale alone tells us just how significant this assessment is in shaping how countries evaluate their education systems. What's especially important to understand is that PISA does not test memorized facts. It tests how students apply knowledge in real-life situations. This is a completely different approach from traditional exams that often reward recall and memorization. Over 90 countries participate in PISA assessments, which shows just how widely accepted this real-world, application-based approach to testing has become on the global stage. Now we move into the heart of the matter. What actually makes a question PISA-like? A truly PISA-like question is based on real-world contexts and scenarios, not textbook problems. This means, instead of asking abstract, disconnected questions, PISA-style items are grounded in situations students might actually encounter outside the classroom. These questions also require higher-order thinking skills, such as analyzing, evaluating, and reasoning. Rather than simple recall, they use authentic stimuli like graphs, tables, articles, maps, and images to present information the way it would appear in real life. Beyond that, these questions measure competencies, not just content knowledge, and they are multi-step, meaning students must process information before answering. Altogether, this combination is what separates a PISA-like question from a traditional memorization-based test item. Building on that foundation, let's break down the core elements that make up a PISA-like item. The first element is real-world context, anchoring the problem in an authentic, everyday situation, such as comparing smartphone data plans, analyzing local weather graphs, or evaluating an advertisement. This ensures students see the relevance of what they're being asked to solve. The second element is the stimulus itself, which should provide clear informational material such as tables, diagrams, maps, or short texts. The third element is the cognitive process required, moving beyond simple recall and asking students to formulate, employ, or evaluate a situation. Finally, the fourth element is mixed formats, meaning the question combines traditional, multiple-choice questions with open-ended, constructed response prompts where students must justify their answers. Together, these 4 elements form the backbone of any well-designed PISA-like question. We now move into a very important section, understanding the 3 domains PISA assesses, and how to craft questions specifically tailored to each one. This is where theory turns into practical application, since each domain requires a slightly different approach when it comes to designing effective questions. For reading literacy, the approach is to use authentic texts such as news articles, letters, advertisements, and social media posts. This ensures students are engaging with the kinds of texts they'll actually encounter in real life, not artificially constructed passages designed purely for testing purposes. Students are then asked to locate information, interpret meaning, and reflect on content, a progression that mirrors how we naturally process real-world reading material. For example, you could give a news article and then ask, "What is the author's purpose in paragraph 2?" This type of question pushes students beyond surface-level reading comprehension and into deeper interpretation and analysis. For mathematical literacy, the strategy involves using real-world data such as budgets, distances, statistics, and graphs, rather than presenting abstract equations disconnected from reality. This domain grounds math problems in practical, tangible scenarios students can relate to. Students are then asked to reason, estimate, and solve problems using math and context. For example, you could give a train schedule and then ask students to calculate the best route and cost. This type of question requires students to apply mathematical thinking to a genuinely useful, real-life decision-making scenario, rather than simply performing isolated calculations. For scientific literacy, the approach uses science scenarios such as climate change, experiments, and health issues, topics that are both relevant and often personally meaningful to students. This domain asks students to explain phenomena, evaluate evidence, and make decisions based on scientific reasoning. For example, you could give pollution data and then ask which factory is most likely responsible and why. This kind of question requires students to interpret data critically and construct a scientifically sound explanation, rather than simply reciting memorized facts about pollution or environmental science. Now that we understand the domains, let's walk through the actual step-by-step process for creating your own PISA-like questions. The first step is to choose a competency domain, deciding if the focus is reading, mathematics, or science literacy. This decision shapes everything that follows, from your stimulus selection to your question wording. The second step is to find or build a stimulus, selecting a contemporary, engaging text or dataset that students might encounter outside of school. The third step is to draft graduated sub-questions across 3 difficulty levels, level 1 to 2, which are easy questions asking students to extract or locate explicit information directly from the text or chart. Level 3 to 4, which are moderate questions asking students to integrate or interpret data, or apply a concept to solve a basic practical problem. And level 5 to 6, which are difficult questions asking students to evaluate validity, build a complex argument, or generalize a solution to an unfamiliar context. Finally, the last step is to review against real-life relevance, ensuring the question measures functional competence and critical thinking rather than textbook definitions. This graduated structure allows you to assess a full range of student abilities using just one stimulus. Let's now look at the common question types used in PISA, since knowing these formats will help you diversify your own assessments. The first type is multiple choice, single answer, where there's one best answer, and multiple choice. Complex, where students must select all that apply, adding an extra layer of critical evaluation. Beyond multiple choice, PISA also uses open constructed response, where the student writes an explanation or justification, and short response, where the answer is simply one word, number, or phrase. Finally, there are reflection questions, such as, "Do you agree?" Use information from the text to support your answer. This mix of question types ensures a well-rounded assessment that captures both quick factual understanding and deeper critical thinking. To wrap up the technical side, let's go through some important tips for writing effective PISA-like questions. First, avoid questions answerable by pure memorization, and make sure your stimulus is engaging and age-appropriate for your specific group of students. Second, questions should have clear and unambiguous wording, and at least one question per stimulus should require personal reflection or opinion with evidence. Third, use Bloom's taxonomy as a guide, focusing on the higher levels such as applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating rather than staying stuck at simple recall. Fourth, ensure cultural fairness, meaning the context you choose should not disadvantage any particular group of students. And finally, pilot test your questions with students before finalizing them. Since real student feedback often reveals wording issues or unexpected interpretations you might have missed on your own, to bring everything together, let's walk through a complete example of a PISA-like question. The stimulus for this example is a bar graph showing plastic waste produced per country in 2022, a real-world, relevant topic that immediately grounds the question in something students can visualize and care about. Based on this stimulus, the question reads, Country X produces less plastic waste than Country Y, but has a higher waste per person rate. What does this tell you about the population size of Country X compared to Country Y? Explain your reasoning using the data. Notice how this single question incorporates data interpretation, logical reasoning, and a written justification, combining several PISA-like elements we discussed earlier into one cohesive, well-crafted item. This is exactly the kind of question you can now start building for your own subject area. And there you have it, a complete guide on how to make PISA-like questions. I hope this gave you the confidence and the concrete steps to start crafting your own real-world, critical thinking-based assessments in your classroom. If this episode helped you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with fellow teachers who want to raise the bar in their own test making. This has been Ma'am Neri, your teacher counselor. See you in the next video.